In today's podcast, I would like to add my voice to the foreign exchange crisis which is currently being experienced in Trinidad and Tobago. For many years, Trinidad and Tobago was the envy of its Caribbean neighbors. With an economy based primarily on oil and gas, money was never a problem, and foreign exchange was freely available for all those who desired to travel abroad or to import luxury items. More recently, however, with the petroleum sector in the doldrums and the availability of natural gas in short supply, the major complaint of the average Trinidadian, apart from the overall state of the economy, is the persistent shortage of foreign exchange and the devastating consequences which this is having, particularly on those businesses dependent on imports, as well as on the average citizen wishing to travel abroad. The main argument so far has been that those individuals wishing to purchase foreign exchange, that is to say, converting their TT dollars into US dollars, have been unable to acquire US currency. And even for the few who have been successful, they sometimes have to wait weeks, if not months, in order to receive the quantum which they desire. Each and every day, the press and the newspaper is replete with articles from economists, business people, and professional commentators offering various solutions to the problems, with some even going as far as advocating for the radical devaluation of the Trinidad and Tobago dollar, a position to which I do not subscribe. However, the merits and demerits of a devaluation of the TT dollar is not the primary purpose of today's podcast. In today's podcast, I would like to turn my attention to another aspect. One might even describe it as an underreported or unreported aspect of the foreign exchange crisis. But it's an aspect nonetheless which has equally deleterious consequences, and perhaps more importantly, can fundamentally affect the actual confidence that citizens have in the entire banking system as a whole. I would also hasten to add that it is a wholly self-inflicted problem and one which can be easily avoided or remedied. The banking system in any country is based on confidence, ultimately. Customers expect that having deposited their funds at a financial institution, when those funds are required, for whatever purpose, they are readily available to be withdrawn, and they can therefore call upon their banks in order to redeem their funds. This is the very essence of banking. It is that simple and it is that complex. Indeed, a cursory analysis and review of banking crises over the years suggests that banks hardly ever run into difficulty due to a lack of capital. More often than not, banking crises and runs usually begins as liquidity crises, which then morph into other more complex problems. But what does this have to do with the current foreign exchange problems in Trinidad and Tobago? You may ask. Everything, if you allow me to elaborate and to explain. As the foreign exchange crisis in Trinidad and Tobago has deepened, in addition to those customers wishing to purchase foreign exchange, with the emphasis on purchase, those customers who actually hold US dollar accounts with these banks are also now beginning to be affected. It is important to make this distinction here. There are two types of customers who may make a claim on the US dollars which the local banks are holding. The first customer is a customer who has a local currency account and simply wants to buy or purchase foreign exchange from the banks, effectively converting his TT dollars into US dollars. The second type of customer is one who actually holds a US dollar account into which he has deposited US dollars, and the bank is therefore holding his US dollars on his behalf. One may add to this that the second customer, the one who actually holds the US dollar in the bank, should and legally has a stronger claim on US dollars vis-a-vis that first customer who is simply seeking to convert his TT dollars into US dollars. The discussion which follows, therefore, is in relation specifically to that second customer, the US dollar account customer. While there seems to be little or no problem encountered when a US dollar account holder at a local bank requests the bank to process either a wire transfer or to issue a US dollar draft on his behalf, evidence is now emerging that whenever those same customers request US cash withdrawals from their US dollar accounts, they are now encountering significant delays, and in some cases are also required to wait several weeks to consummate simple withdrawals. Customers may need US cash for a variety of reasons. They may be traveling abroad and may need to have the cash available to make spontaneous or emergency purchases. They may have a child studying abroad who is visiting and may want to give them cash for their return journey. Even in the best of times, credit cards may not function effectively, and it is therefore always a good backup plan to have cash available, if only to avoid embarrassment. But whatever the reason, cash is a legitimate medium, and banks need to make provisions so that when a customer requests a withdrawal from their account, it is available in a reasonable time frame and in reasonable sums. This should be the case for local currency, but it should also be the case for foreign currency account holders as well. Whenever a US dollar account holder is told by its bank that they are unable to withdraw cash from their personal account, or they are advised to return next week to see if they will be able to complete the transaction, or to visit another branch, such actions on the part of the banks are actually adding fuel to the fire of the foreign exchange crisis which the country is currently undergoing. And one might add, unnecessarily so. Perhaps even more importantly, such actions only serve to undermine the confidence in the overall banking system. To put the problem differently, but perhaps even more starkly, consider a scenario in which a customer visited the same banks to withdraw local currency from their account and was turned away because the bank did not have any cash on the day in question. What do you think would happen by the end of that day? I will tell you. There will be a long line of customers queuing up around that bank to withdraw the deposits from the bank. When the US dollar depositor in local banks are unable to withdraw US cash from their accounts, the problem is no different. And I've said that this problem is self-inflicted and is wholly unnecessary. The reason that I say this is because the problem can be easily avoided or averted. This can be done by simply having the local banks hold a reasonable and predictable amount of US cash available on a daily basis in order to satisfy the need, at the very least, of its US dollar account holders. Now, the banks do not like doing this, holding large sums of cash in their tills. There is a financial and economic cost to banks for holding cash, whether that cash is US dollars or local currency. Actual or physical cash held on the bank's premises cannot be invested and therefore cannot generate a return for the financial institution in question. Consequently, most banks make a conscious and deliberate decision to enhance their profitability by limiting and restricting the amount of actual cash that they hold on hand. However, this strategy of enhancing the bank's underlying profitability comes especially at a time when the country is already experiencing a foreign exchange crisis with a very high price tag. It exacerbates the foreign exchange situation by projecting to the public that the situation is worse than it really is, and it therefore serves to further undermine the confidence of the entire banking system. Something to think about. A word to the wise.